Good day, and welcome to another episode of Program Manager's Guide to Kerbal. Today we will be looking in on our mission control to see what kind of missions we have. We have 2 active contracts. We have testing the TT38K radial decoupler at the launch site, and we also have Orbit Kerbal. Orbit Kerbal is going to be interesting. Let's get this TT38K radial decoupler out of the way. To do that, we need to perform the test, activate the part through the staging sequence when all test conditions are met. So in project management, that would be our project scope statement. To do that, we need to plan the scope. We need to collect the requirements, define the scope, and create the work breakdown structure. So in essence, the briefing has given us the plan scope, the collection requirements. We're defining the scope in that briefing and the objective. And we are also creating a work breakdown structure. We want to ensure that all parties or all stakeholders are aware of our intent and understand their piece in the project. So once that is completed, we will go to our design phase. Okay, the testing of the TT38K radial decoupler. We need to be at the launch site, so we will build a very small rocket with the radial decoupler. So we always need a command module. We will use a flea and the 38 radial decoupler is highlighted for us. Right now we're just placing it on the craft. This is just a test, so we don't have to go all out. Save some money. So what we do want to do is make sure all our components are off. Going to 0. That way we can accomplish the actual decoupling with the least amount of force, because all we have to do is decouple for the test. So from a project management standpoint, the timeline we didn't go over because it's a game. Essentially we're going to do this in a couple of seconds, whereas in the real life you'd have to go out and make sure all your suppliers are properly informed. We have all the teams aligning to get those supplies and products on into the warehouse, and then when we do engineering builds and go through the project management timeline and ask everybody how long they'll need for each one. And of course we have a set duration for this. It needs to be done in a couple weeks. We'll meet that timeline easily, probably exceed it, which is always good. We have the project cost management. Right now we're spending 1461 Kerbal dollars, which seems about right. We'll recover most of that in cost. We could probably go cheaper initial build, but for now we have the amount that we need, so we'll just initiate or take the project cost into account. Of course, project cost in reality, we'd have to talk about hours, man hours, overtime hours. We'd need to talk about, we would want to take into consideration for those hours, like the earned value, the percent, and that's the percent complete times the planned value. Of course, the planned value here, we can make something up, but in an actual project, we'd have an exact cost, or at least an estimated cost. Cost performance index, which is your earned value divided by your AC. So there's a couple formulas, the earned value formulas, that we would want to take into account in a project, depending on that project and how long that project is supposed to be initiated for. But for the most part, the earned value of this project is percent complete times planned value. So right now we're 100% complete times the planned value, so we're at 100. Not to worry though. what we don't want to do is fire these engines first, so we'll come over here to the staging, and we'll make that decoupler first. That way it decouples on the actual launch pad. We'll have met the criteria for the test, and we'll have gained our money. Let's call this spacecraft, because we don't want to not pay respects to our project name. We'll just call it Testy, and then the ship description is testing the PT38K radial decoupler. Alright, and for those of you who are interested why we wouldn't test this, as you can see, the decoupler itself, and this is a little off, it'll do good for our tests, but this, I would make sure this is straight perpendicular to the actual spacecraft. And one of the uses for a decoupler is to use booster separation at a certain altitude, so you get the booster advantages and decouple at a certain altitude to loosen or lessen the weight in order for the rocket center to ignite and allow for a little bit more acceleration, a little bit more thrust to weight ratio on the module that is left with after the separation of the boosters. So there's a couple things we can do in this configuration. I'll be actually interested to find out if I could launch a booster in this configuration later on. Might be worth testing. But for now, we have the craft saved. We have all the fuel tanks, and the checklist is giving us everything we need to be safe. Again, safe is the operative word here, especially when we're talking about manned spaceflight. So let's go out to the launch pad, and we're a little off. Like I said, I didn't build this perfectly. I would have aligned the bottom. As you can see, it's off. This is just for a test, so I will click our remote staging, which is a space bar in the game, and let's see if that decoupler works for us. Perfect. And of course, with that, in the upper right hand corner, we can see a little green check mark saying we have met all test conditions. All we have to do is recover the vessel, and as we recover the vessel, you'll see that our project costs are refunded. So currently we spent about half of the funds to build the rocket, so essentially it was around $1,400 to build the rocket and to test the rocket. 745 of that was recovered, so that's not bad. We got no science out of it, and we have no experience gained for the crew. But our total reputation went up 56. The reason we did not gain any reputation from this. It's simply a test. It's for our uses, of course. So when we hit done and we go back, we can see that our active is orbit Kerbal only. Let's see what our available tests are, and as you can see, there's some interesting ones. The focused observational surveys, and we got plenty of them. Notice they're 1 star. They're going to be hard to do just because it's going to take some skill actually to pilot the spacecraft, or the rocket launch to an altitude of 10,000 meters to 16,000 meters. We want to be doing 180 meters a second to 340 meters a second. And once we do that, we want to activate the LVT-45 swivel liquid fuel, and then that test will be completed. However, with that said, those speeds in a rocket are going to be interesting to get to that 10,000 meters to 16,000 meters. So we're going to have to do a little bit more planning. So I think I'm gonna hold off on that just now. We have 21 hours and 52 minutes and 9 seconds to accept this mission. Or you can substitute mission for project, right? In a program, Your whole entire program is based off of several projects. So once all those projects are completed, your program should be complete, and or your program should be advancing to the next phase of its mission stated mission. So we'll look at that. I don't believe we're at ferry for tourists safely to their destination and back. That one we're going to have to hold off on. That one's a little bit more interesting because we'll have to fly to certain destinations, land, and then come back. In this case, it would be the suborbital space flight, which I think we can do. Suborbital space flights shouldn't be a problem. Should be relatively safe. So let's do that one, and what we will do is we'll hold on to it and you have 5 years to complete it. And let's see what we can do. Let's go ahead and accept that. Okay, and that's today's Program Manager's Guide to Kerbal. We did go into a few terms from the PMP guide, one of them being EV formulas, or the earned value formulas. Keep in mind that as a program manager, project manager, you will be using a lot of the technical or cost finance formulas. Sometimes you won't need to. Sometimes you're going to have estimates. I shouldn't say you don't need to. I'd say a lot of times it might not be hard numbers, but give it your best to figure it out, right? And with the earned value formulas, you can also look at your cost performance index, your cost variance, your schedule performance index, your schedule variance, your estimate at completion, or EAC, your estimate to complete, your variance at completion, and you have a lot of formulas that allow the communication of your project to your management and let them know. For example, on the schedule variance, that it would be your EV minus your PV. So your EV, which was your percent complete and planned value, is going to be minus your planned value. So percent complete times the planned value equals EV, and then you would subtract your EV from your PV to get your schedule variance. And it allows you to see that delta in real numbers in order to make informed decisions. You can even plot them out, and as your project continues and you report on that how often as you like, or how often as management would like, then you can see that schedule moving, or I shouldn't say the schedule moving itself, but the variance moving up and down. And that gives you an idea of not only difficulty of the project or that period of the project, but also allows you to communicate to management the variability that occurred during that section. If you're using Azure, you would be speaking in terms of sprints. In project management, phases perhaps, or process groups. So keep that in mind as you take away from these little Kerbal excursions that I'm providing. Any questions you'd have, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. If you feel that this information is cool and useful, please leave a like, and if you really like the series, please subscribe. And if you really like the series, hit that little notification bell. For now, as we like to say, and a very old astronomer that was on PBS in the Northeast United States for a long time, he would sign off by saying, "Keep looking up."